Hello, this is David Austin with the BBC News. Research by more than 100 scientists from around the world has shown that sea levels are rising faster than predicted, as ice in Greenland and Antarctica melts at an unprecedented rate. The report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change says the number of floods and storms will increase and hundreds of millions of people could be forced to leave their homes by the end of the century. Dr. Philip Williamson is one of the authors of the report.
The sea level rise rate has more than doubled just within the last 20 or 30 years, and projections seem as though that it could be more than a metre by the end of the current century. But it's also saying that there are a lot of uncertainties there. Could be even worse, and it could be better if we have the emission reductions. We could then keep the end of the century sea level rise to half a metre or so.
There have been heated exchanges in the British Parliament as it reconvened, a day after the Supreme Court ruled that the government had acted unlawfully in suspending it. The Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox, vehemently defended the original decision to prorogue Parliament for 5 weeks in the run-up to Brexit and attacked opposition politicians. He accused them of being afraid to agree to a general election and of letting down millions of people who voted leave.
Twice they have been asked to let the electorate decide upon whether they should continue to sit in their seats, while they block 17.4 million people's votes. This Parliament is a disgrace.
The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who's cut short a trip to New York to return to London, is to make a statement in a few hours. The first flight has taken off from Beijing's huge new airport, Daxing International. The entire project has been completed in less than 5 years at a cost of about $63 billion. When running at full capacity, the airport is expected to become one of the busiest in the world, handling 100 million passengers a year. The authorities in northwest Italy have evacuated a number of homes amid fears that a glacier on the Mont Blanc Massif could be about to collapse. Here's our Italy correspondent, James Reynolds.
Scientists monitoring the Planpasio glacier say that its movement has recently accelerated to around 50 to 60 centimetres a day, and that has put the local authorities on alert. The mayor of the town of Courmayeur has issued an order limiting traffic, and he's cleared a series of homes. Officials will set up a radar in order to monitor the glacier's movement in real time. They stress that taking precautions doesn't mean that a dramatic collapse is necessarily about to happen.
James Reynolds reporting. World News from the BBC. The US military says it's killed 11 suspected Islamic State militants in an airstrike in Libya. The attack on Tuesday was carried out near the southern town of Mourzouk. It was the second time in less than a week that the Americans had targeted fighters in the area. Some IS militants retreated southwards into Libya's desert regions 3 years ago. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has told his Venezuelan counterpart, Nicolas Maduro, that Moscow supports talks with the opposition as a way to end the country's crisis. He told Mr. Maduro during a meeting in Moscow that any refusal to engage in dialogue was irrational. President Putin promised to send more humanitarian aid to Venezuela. The aid group Action Against Hunger says an Islamist militant group holding 6 people in northeastern Nigeria has killed one of the hostages. The group says the militants have been holding one of its employees, 2 drivers and 3 health ministry personnel since July. Last week, the Nigerian army ordered Action Against Hunger to stop working in Borno and Yobe states. The conservation group, the WWF, has rejected the findings of a Kenyan parliamentary inquiry that accused it of being partly responsible for a botched relocation of 14 rhinos last year that left 11 of the animals dead. Will Ross has the details.
The inquiry by Kenyan MPs accused the conservation group WWF of ignoring the advice of local wildlife experts and pushing the Kenyan authorities to speed up the relocation of the rhinos. The MPs said the motive was to generate positive publicity and funds. The endangered rhinos died soon after being moved when they drank water with high concentrations of salt. But the WWF, which donated $1 million towards the project, denied it had ignored any advice and said the quality of the water on the site had never been raised as a concern.
That's the latest BBC News.